What's up, everyone? I'm Dan, and I'm here with David. We are just two casual units that have jumped onto Skool. We met through a separate community that's for Aussies only, really. And we've been talking, and over the last week, we thought, stop it, let's record a video and have a chat. I'll let David take it off and introduce himself and give him a bit of a rundown, and then I'll jump in after.
I think the funniest thing is that you and I had a conversation for the first time. We met online last week, and we spoke for almost 2 hours, I think. And then at the end, we're like, "Oh, we probably should have pressed record because we would have got some." We talked about some pretty heavy stuff on that first chat. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it's awesome to be online with you. Our communities are really aligned, aren't they? Like they're both around human skills, and when you meet other people when they think the same, it's incredible, mate. So it's been really good to make your acquaintance, and it's awesome to chat today. We're both into the human skills being like, emotional intelligence, psychological safety, empathy, kindness. We can go on with that for quite a while. Do you want to, can I ask you first, how old were you? What was the first time that you were like, bang, what is all this human skill stuff? Where has it been all my life? And like, was there a defining moment for you at all?
So for me, I've been a nurse since 2010. I never really knew anything about it. Like it was just something that for healthcare workers, it's like, well, you're a nurse, should be good at this stuff anyway. It wasn't until I became like a associate nurse manager, where I was dealing with people more, not patient focused at this point. This is more looking after the staff, look after the patient. So it's that one step up. And during COVID, when everything became digitalized, it was very obvious very quickly that our relationships between staff were getting pushed, hard. Even meetings, with staff that you'd see all the time, you're now seeing them on a blank screen, and like you just lost contact essentially with them. And then my manager at one day was getting a little bit frustrated with the senior nursing group. They just didn't seem to be buying in as much as they probably could be. And I just happened to be in the proximity. And I was like, well, what do you want? And so she essentially just gave me this blank canvas and said, can you just figure something out? So the benefit of being in COVID times was there's a lot of times to not do a lot. So I was initially doom scrolling, playing stupid games. And then once that opportunity came around, I'm like, okay, so what do I need to do? First, it was, I think I need to help my staff with the clinical stuff. But these guys have been nursing for donkey's years. Clinical skills weren't the problem. And there's so many avenues that they could work on improving that stuff. So I had a sit down conversation with a few of them, and they're like, I suck at giving feedback, or I'm not very good at taking feedback myself, or when pressure gets hard, it's easier to walk away. And I was like, okay, so your position description states that you should be excelling in all these things, where what you're telling me is you don't know how to do it at all. So I essentially just one day went up to my manager and said, okay, I'm got to make a study day on human skills. And she just looked at me for a minute and she goes, all right, fine, have a crack. So about 2 months it took, got the roster lined up. I had 12 clinical nurse specialist nurses in a room with me. And I was just telling them about emotional intelligence. I was talking about how to have a challenging conversation. There's a little bit like portfolio management because they had no idea about that either. Like it was very loosely associated with the role that they had. And then at the end of it, the first day, one of the most senior nurses who I actually was looking up to as I was progressing, she said, where's this shit been? We don't get any of this stuff. I was like, I don't know, I just made it up. And she goes, I think you need to, I didn't make up the content. I obviously learned about it, but I just made up the day. I just put it all together and here you go. And then she said, you should probably do this to more staff in the organization. And since 2023, I've now presented to 350 staff at my organization. And then that was the entrepreneurial sort of route. And the entrepreneurial route, I'm probably seen a little bit of one-on-one coaching, a little bit of group sessions like with senior management leaders and emerging leaders as well, talking about, what are the skills you need to be able to be a better version of that role. And then I came to Skool and there's so many people that are like-minded like me, where I was in this little bubble of my own. And then here we are having a chat about it. So that's my little story. I could continue on forever, but that's the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah,
That's the origin story.
The origin story, yeah. The first
Yeah.
Avengers movie. No, I love the fact, man,
Yeah.
that you just made it up, right? You realize there was a gap, and it's like, I'm just going to go out and do this. Can I ask, did you find, are there many other people in your organization that are helping you and backing you up and going, I'll help present stuff?
When it comes to me doing the presentations and organizing the days, the senior people in the organization have said, go for it. But when it comes to people saying, hey, I want to be part of the day, and then I go, well, there's a bit of work that you need to do in your own hours, people are like, no.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so sad because, like, I'm going to assume that you're an ED nurse. There's probably 1,000 people. Well, I don't know how many people work like in your workplace.
In my department, we have 250 nurses alone.
Yeah.
The organization's probably got 10,000.
10,000. So,
Probably.
you represent like 0.1% of that workplace, right? And you're the only guy standing up that's willing to put in the effort to improve those things. But then everyone's like, this is awesome. Where have you been in my life? Where I wish I had you when I was in my 20s, because I probably wouldn't have made so many dumb mistakes, that kind of thing. That's the exact same thing I hear as well.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Why is it that these basic human skills that you and I probably, it's bread and butter for you and I, like you're probably thinking about it all the time. Why is it so, I'm not going to say why is it rare, but why is it rare that there are people that want to actively get after it in a big workplace like yours?
I think there's a lack of confidence to try and actually practice it. So one way that I've tried to explain to people is if you go to the gym, you're not going to deadlift 100 kilos first go. You got to do little bits and pieces of it as you go. You start off at 20 kilos, 30 kilos, whatever you're comfortable with. And then once you build that confidence and you get a little bit of strength, you can go that little bit harder, a little bit harder, a little bit harder, and you eventually grow it up. The benefit of those physical sort of skills, and you can get feedback from someone. You can go to the mate behind you and go, hey, how's my form looking? How's my back look? Am I lifting right? Da, 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 and you get that feedback. And people are comfortable to give that because they have confidence in it too. When it comes to having a challenging conversation with someone or doing a reflection piece or any of those, human factors that are reflection and developing that way, people don't know who to reach out to. You're very vulnerable, more so than what you would be in a gym. So my start of any of the days I do, I go, this is hard. No question, because you've never been given the tools to manage it. Or if you have been given the tools, you haven't been given the space to practice it. So the days that I organize, I try and keep the content relatively minimal and give time for people to really just open up, create a safe space and just practice, give them some frameworks and just practice. And that's what I think people have found really beneficial is it's created that space where they can, be a little bit uncomfortable.
That's a good space. And if you can open up sort of vulnerability in a workplace with a bunch of your colleagues, super powerful, isn't it? Like, because you don't often have the opportunity to be vulnerable really, like
Yeah.
deeply vulnerable. Your
No.
conversations are generally water cooler conversations like, how you going? How was your weekend? Depending on what you're
Mm.
doing. So when you give people the opportunity to really open up, oh my God, Jen, it changed lives. It makes people's day. That's for sure. That's what I find anyway. Mm.
Absolutely. Yeah. I could go on about many stories about people coming up to me at ends of the sessions, saying, I had no idea how this day was going to pan out, but thank you.
Yep.
And that's cool. I'm not reinventing any wheel or anything like that. It's just making that space where someone can have a bit of a reflection and think and go, actually, I could probably do that approach a different way. And if
Yeah.
they do it and it's successful, then that's a win. That's essentially all I'm trying to do is just move your focus 1 degree to make yourself a little bit better. And that's serving me well so far.
Nice. That's good. And are you going to keep it up? You still doing more sort of workshops in the workplace?
My organization's definitely asked me to do more. I'm just trying to work out when, trying to get some different systems to be able to make it a little bit easier for me. And then, the entrepreneurial side of things, well, I mean, world's my oyster. It's just getting that 1 or 2 clients this year to kind of get the ball rolling and go from there.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. I really like your analogy of going to the gym, right? And I think this is one thing too. Like it's when it comes to, I think we call them human skills, and we call them human skills because of Simon Sinek. A lot of people call them soft skills and hard skills being your job. But it's
Mm.
what makes us human. So human
Mm.
skills really is brilliant. It's about, that going to the gym is a good analogy because if you if you want to get better at something, if you want to get better at lifting or get fitter, you have to go routinely. It has to be something that you consider doing all the time, right?
Mm.
Because you can't go to the gym and just be fit or just lose weight. You go to the gym consistently and eventually you will get fit and you will lose weight and you will become healthier. And if you have these sort of values where human skills really matters and you just do it all the time, you will
Mm.
change and you will change other people around you for the better. It's just so powerful.
Mm. Yeah. No, it's very rewarding sort of gig that I got at the moment. I'm very fortunate to do it. Yeah, we'll just see how it grows over time.
Nice. And it's
Right.
funny,
That's enough about me. Yeah, go.
enough about you. Okay. Well,
No, go. You go. You say what you were going to say. You had a thought.
yeah, well, I was going to say it's every single person that I've come across that's like, wow, this is actually awesome. And you sort of get into their origin story of why they like this. It always comes from negative stuff. They've always had a bad experience and they're like, yeah, I want to do better. I want to be the person that doesn't, so that doesn't happen to other people.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually where my origin story comes in too. I was in what was it? Like, we're going back to 2012. So 13 years ago, I was in my 40s. I've been in the Air Force for 30 years. And you can definitely say that the Air Force culture has changed many, many times over in that 30 years of my career. And while we've had people, while I've worked with so many awesome people that are, they have the empathy piece and they're really kind and they'll look after you and they've got each other's back and you can trust them and all that sort of stuff. They're less common than the guys that are jerks. There's a lot of people out there that just come to work to make other people's lives miserable. I don't know why. Um, the old military sort of talk of you think you're in the military and the way you get things done in the military is you yell at people. And then if you yell at people, they're going to do what you ask them to do. Well, that's what we're used to seeing from, the old military World War II movies and that kind of thing. But it definitely doesn't work long term. It works short term. It'll get the job done right now, but it doesn't work long term. I was in one flying position. I was flying caribous, and the guys I was working with there were like the pilots, the flight engineers, the techos. I don't know what it was about that place, but it was absolutely brilliant. It was such a good place to work, and the plane we worked on was it was an old aircraft, and it was just so cool. I can't I don't fully understand why that place was so awesome. Then the next place I was posted to was with Hercs. Now, the Hercules is such an awesome plane, and the job that it does and the people that are there are awesome. But unfortunately, there was a culture there, um, and I'd seen it many times over the years, where a Herc would arrive somewhere and the ramp would drop down at the back, and then you've got this loadmaster standing up on top of the ramp yelling at people, "Hey, get the forklift, go and fucking do this and this and this and that," and yelling at people and berating people. And just they're up there on their little stage on the back of the plane, just like giving people a hard time, just being smart ass. And just it was just like, I'm the loadmaster, you are here to serve me, go and do it now, right? Yeah, it was a terrible culture. It was really bad. And unfortunately, we used to laugh at those guys going, "Look at this guy, look, what a jerk. Why do you have to treat people like that?" And when you talk to them, for them, it was completely normalized. It was just part of their culture. So, of course, when I got posted to that squadron, it was one of the things I definitely wasn't going to be that kind of operator. I wanted to be different. But what ended up happening was there was a pretty tight group of people within that unit that were absolutely awesome at their job. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all. They were brilliant. Right? You could have asked them almost anything about the technical nature of their job, and they could tell you. And they could normally tell you where it came from out of the book and what manual it was in. And they were brilliant, right? And I looked up to them originally because of their technical skill, but their human skills were shocking. They were the guys that yelled. They stabbed each other in the back. It was a pretty cutthroat culture, to the point like there was a saying that loadmasters eat their own. Like they would stab their mates in the back to get a good trip, to look better than the other person, whatever that may be. And I found it extremely disappointing. But that wasn't everyone. It was just a small group of people. And I don't like to throw spears at those guys, because they had a value for the squadron. They provided a good output in some manners. But then I used to teach, at the time I was teaching human factors courses, right? So it's crew resource management. It's a staple sort of air crew course that we have to do every couple of years. And I used to teach them, and I'd put the human skills into it, which was fairly new because most guys were just used to hearing about how to make better decisions, how to have better situational awareness, and how to change our culture. But I'd talk about what is going on in your mind, body, and soul, like your mind, body contract, for you to get that outcome. And it really shocked people. They're like, that stuff's actually pretty cool. I like that. Can we do more of that? So a lot of the guys that were the good people, the good operators, and they were really nice people as well, they supported that sort of thing. Unfortunately, that purple circle that was the bad eggs, they just made it horrible they used to throw, that if you're a high performer, but you're really low trust sort of graph that Simon Sinek puts out, they were the guys in the top left corner that were really good at their jobs, but you couldn't trust them with anything. And then you've got the other guys on the other side who are maybe a medium performer or a really high performer, but they're also super trustworthy dudes or girls, right? And they're the kind of the unicorns that he said. But he said the special forces would actually prefer to have like a medium or a low performer that's got your back over the high performer that is a jerk. Unfortunately, this squadron supported those high performers that were jerks, right? And they allowed, like the leadership allowed them to throw spears at the medium performers and the low performers, right?
Yeah.
They weren't as good at their job, so they'd let them throw the spears at them, give them a hard time. And all those guys that were actually, they were like, I'm not going to say I was the highest performing guy. I'm definitely not the best loadie out there, but I enjoyed the job, and I did a good job, and I did it for many, many years. But I just became a target, and so did a lot of my mates who were the good guys as well. We became targets because the management supported that. So then, of course, I went on, when I eventually posted out, I was there for 5 or 6 years. I did five deployments to the Middle East in that time frame. So it was a pretty full-on lifestyle, right? When I posted out of there, I went to another unit, which was a lot more. It was a busy unit, but a lot more chilled and a very, very harmonious place to work. I looked back and went, wow, that was actually really bad what I put up with back there. And now my mates are putting up with it. So I've got to sort this out. And I had an opportunity to do that through some of the coaching and some of the training that I did. And that's when I found, I'll tell you pretty much the exact moment was when like guys like Simon Sinek come out on YouTube and Tony Robbins and those sort of guys, and they were that sort of success porn on YouTube, like where they talk about this sort of stuff all the time, became really popular in that time frame. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I need right now. So I started reading all the emotional intelligence books, like the Dan Goleman and Simon Sinek and all those guys and girls that brought out this leadership stuff. And I resonated with it really well. And then I had heaps of opportunity of just like yourself, mate, I've had opportunities over the years to present and run workshops in front of some awesome people and help change the culture. One of the places I worked with them for 3 years, ended up winning the best squadron of the year award, right? And because myself and a couple of the colleagues that I was with, we went heavy on implementing human skills and Andrew Huberman style motivation, nutrition, good sleep quality, like the good human habits that make us good. And I even had guys that, like there was guys in there working 12-hour shifts 24/7, and they'd rock up at 10:30 in the morning to start their shift and would not leave the office till 12 hours later. And I'm like, dudes, that's terrible. You got to, like, they'd wake up out of bed. They might go to the gym if they're lucky, and then they'd come straight inside the office. I said, dude, you've at least got to see more sun. You got to get out in the sun in the middle of the day, get outside for lunch, try to do movement. You got to eat better. And, we've got to, the way we treat ourselves and our customers with kindness, empathy, human skills that actually matter, make better decisions, have better situational awareness, those kinds of things. And, oh God, it worked. And that, for the years that we were there, that place hummed really well. They were more healthy in their mind, in their body. And it really worked. It really worked well. So now I've got, just like yourself, man, I've got people coming to me going, hey, can you come to our workplace and do one of your workshops? And the military is good because like you think it's just a big machine, but it's really just a whole lot of little offices, little workplaces with, some have got 10 people, some have got 100 people, but you've got lots of all these little micro cultures. If you can make small changes in some of those micro cultures, then you're having a win as far as I'm concerned. And it's so much fun because like you get to see people and they go, hey, that was actually brilliant. Where have you been in my life? Because that was, I wish I had that when I was in my 20s, because I know I wish I knew it, but it's definitely become quite a powerful movement, I think, around the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome story. So moving forward with you at the moment, like where are you hoping this will kind of go? Is there any particular industries that you'll get called into a lot with? Is there any common sort of workplaces that contact you?
Well, I'm still in the Air Force. So Air Force units, it's pretty common to get the groups of people together, but you can only go so far. And while I've had some success, there's others. Yeah, and it's like watering a tree. I've always said, if you want to get good at this stuff, you've got to go to the gym. You've got to have that discipline to carry it forward, keep it going. We'll talk about it now. Then you go to your family or your colleagues and you talk about it with them so that this grows. Sometimes it does grow, sometimes it doesn't. It depends on the people, doesn't it? It depends. You need people that actively want to change the world, change their workplace culture, whatever that may look like. There's only so much you can do in your own workplace. This opportunity with Skool that you and I have both jumped on now, I don't think a lot of people, especially in Australia, know how powerful the Skool platform is and how powerful the communities can be on there. But I think the opportunity to to share these these lessons, these stories that we have, right? And to share the values and the good things that can come from this. Now that we get to scale that, right? As big, as much as we want to, as much as we have the capacity to, as much as we want to put the work in, we can scale that to tens, hundreds, thousands potentially.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
what I like. So I'm going, while I'm still full-time in the Air Force, I'm going full in on building community with good guys like yourself, so that you share these messages, listen to other people's messages and their stories, and just help people through. That's where I kind of want to go now. Yeah. Yourself?
Yeah, I think touching on this whole Skool sort of setup is, like I jumped on end of November, had no expectations at all. Started posting on my platform. No one was there. I'm like, who am I posting to? So then I was like, I got to jump on other communities. So then, I was on Schoolers and then got into Schoolmates and just started posting random stuff essentially to start with. Then a few people were like, oh, I like what you're picking up and putting down, so I'm going to follow you. And my community's doing this. Do you want to help out a bit? So it's been a little bit of, helping each other out sort of thing. And their communities are starting to grow their way. So I haven't had to be as active on their communities, vice versa as well. But, there's been some pretty cool people that we've seen so far who are also in our community. So like Sean, who I met through a different platform, he asked me to do a podcast with him to essentially talk about what my community does and what my goals in life are, and chatting about life. And that was nice fun. And then there's another guy that I met, Stephen, who lives in Ireland as a PT, who's now doing my program, but he's also very keen on the human side of, professional development and personal development. So getting in there on that has been pretty cool. And then from there, people in their communities are like, hey, I like what Dan's doing. I'm going to jump over. So a little bit of poaching at the start, but from that, your discovery comes a little bit more to the forefront of people's searches. And then, I'm getting people jumping on who have mental health battles that they want to build some confidence in the way that they present themselves. So, having conversations with them's been quite powerful. When sometimes it's not one-to-one, it's kind of they're putting their heart out there on the platform, and then multiple other people have little bits of awesome, information and little things that they can do to help them. I had one girl on there talk about how she finally stood up to her boss. Like, she wasn't getting a promotion. She was doing all the work. She was doing this, and she put it all out there on my page. Few people gave a little bits of info, and I wrote her a personal message as well. And then like the next day, she's written like a gratitude post on like, I stuck it to the man. I spoke to my boss saying, I'm not comfortable doing this. She set her boundaries, and, I'm like, Jesus, like, who would have thought in November that I'd be having such an impact on someone's life just by sending a couple of messages and a, personal message, and having other people buy into it as well, which is the amazing thing. Like, you go on Facebook, Instagram, like it's all shadow. It's all bubbles and happy go times, and no one talks about the hard stuff. Whereas this platform, it's a safe place for people. Like, they sign up, and then everything is said in there stays in there. And that girl's in Germany.
Wow. That is brilliant. Right.
Yeah, so it's powerful stuff. And then she tells her friends, and they jump on, and I help her platform. Well, she's going, I'm going to make my own community. Can you come and help? So, it's been a great investment to just meet people. And like I've got my own blog and doing all these other people like, oh, give me a link. I want to read it. I want to know more about you and understand you. And, it's a good advertising platform as well, because it gets you noticed. Whereas I could do the same thing on Facebook and get one like, and it disappears in the algorithm.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I find everything you do here in here, you can also take to work. So all the things you're learning from
Mm,
different people around the world,
mm,
because like I met this dude the other day. He's in his 30s, and he was talking about this sort of stuff. And he was saying stuff I'd never even heard of. I'm like, dude, that is so brilliant. He was so smart. Yeah, and
mm.
so I was learning off this younger fella, and then was able to actually use some of that with my family. Like, and this is what this guy said. We should try this, because it might actually help us with some of our dynamics that we've got in our family. And it is so good. Yeah, the community being able to open up to different people. You've got someone from Germany that you've helped out, and you can learn from them. It is such a good opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple of people that I know in my personal life that I'm like, hey, I've got this thing going. If you're interested, I'll send you the link. You can jump on. And now they're messaging back up. This is brilliant. I love this. Like one guy that I know is going to start studying mental health. And there are people on the platform who have their own battles and insights on their own mental health. And I'm like, this is valuable knowledge for you. So when you actually start going in the real world, you've got other people that you could talk to who have probably experienced these sort of things and they're happy to share their story, which is amazing.
Nice. Yep.
Mm.
You know what else I really like is like when you get in a room of people, and you might have a couple of like old guys or old people in the back of the room, and they sort of sit there with their arms crossed, and they're like, I don't really want to be here. Um, I've had that a few times, and within half an hour, I've just through the way you're talking, they're like, actually, this stuff is actually pretty good. And the buy-in starts happening with them, and they're like, that was
Yeah.
actually pretty awesome. I wish I grew up in a culture like that, like we have now. I wish we had it 20 years
Yeah.
ago, because this is brilliant. It's good.
Yeah.
Um, I've had people say, is this like a DEI initiative, diversity, equity, inclusion? I'm like, I'm not a DEI kind of guy. I'm a meritocracy kind of guy. Definitely. I want people to succeed based on what they can do and what they've been able to achieve throughout their life. And he's like, well, that's good. That's a good start. And I said, do you want to know why? Because me personally, I've been working with the special forces for 20 plus years. And I've seen a cultural shift within the special forces over the years. They would rock up in the back of the plane like 20 years ago. All you could smell was last night's alcohol and the 20 cigarettes that they've smoked this morning, right? But they're all big dudes. They're all as fit as they could be at the time, and they all shit talk, and they still shit talk to this day, which I think's actually kind of funny. But even the shit talk's changed. They used to. It's like I said before. They used to find someone they target, so there'd be one of the shorter guys or one of the younger fellas. They'd just give them a hard time, right? And we see that in the movies as well. These days, you just don't see that anymore. Well, firstly, yeah, they get on, they have a few beers, but I've seen them, and this actually really impressed me. We had an exercise here at Richmond a couple of years ago, and it was October. It was Oktoberfest, right? But they were doing parachuting for like 2 weeks straight. So every day they were going up and down 2 or 3 times doing their parachuting. And it was Oktoberfest. I was running the bar there and helping out with a few other things. Playing Hammerschlagen was one of them, hitting the nail in the block of wood, the old German game. We were doing that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, 20 special forces guys rocked up. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. These guys are going to get into the Hammerschlagen. They're going to have heaps of beers. And they're probably going to, there's probably going to be guys wanting to punch on later, right? Because so they can show how tough they are for the special forces. But these guys, they come down, they hit the nail in the wood. Yep, cool. They grabbed a beer, they grabbed some sauerkraut, and then they were gone. They were gone by 7:30 p.m. And I'm like, what? What just happened? They cleared out all of them because now their culture now is not work hard, play hard. Their culture is it was all about human performance and human skills. Yeah, they can be jerks, but they've all got their moments. They're nice guys. They're honest. They're trustworthy. Otherwise, they just wouldn't be there, right? They've got a very strong culture, whereas they go away into deployment and the wife's washing machine breaks down, and you know the boss will hear about it, and so they'll send a bunch of boys over to help move the washing machine, fix it, whatever that may look like. that used to be a target-rich environment for some of the guys and the girls. But now, if you go over to fix your wife's, some bloke's wife's washing machine, something bad happens, you're done. You're out of the unit, right? You're cooked. There's so much trust. There's so much, so many good skills coming out of the special forces these days, and it is so impressive to see. Now, these guys, they'd had a couple of beers at Oktoberfest. They were back on the plane the next morning at 5 a.m. Up at 15,000 feet, jumping out, doing a full solid day's work. And then they had a couple of beers again the next night. Now, that cultural change is because of the human performance programs that we've got in defense, right? It's all about good sleep, good nutrition, not drinking too much alcohol, mental well-being, looking after your family, trust. And that just speaks volumes about how important these skills are. Because these guys go out and do their job, they go out on a mission, and they do some pretty like full-on stuff. And if they don't have those basic human performance skills, like as normalized everyday behavior, it just doesn't work. And I think that speaks to how important some of these skills that you and I are talking about are. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I remember watching one video on Simon Sinek talking about, like, they're not colleagues, they're brothers and sisters. Like, they treat each other like family. Like, they just have that next level of respect for each other. Like, I'm even using that in my community. Like, I'm nursing by trade, everybody's brother, sister, always has been. But I do it here. Thanks, brother. Thanks for giving your thing. And like, it just makes people feel a little bit more valued, I think. And I didn't even think anything of it. Like, some person messaged me saying, "Oh, hey, what's with the brother sister thing?" And I explained to him, my background and all that. Like, "Oh, that's pretty special that you're using that in this platform. Makes me feel a little bit more valued." And I think that's all people want. These skills. Yeah, like, it's not a hard thing to do. And yeah, it just makes a massive difference in some people's day. And yeah, like some of the stuff you were saying, when it comes to learning these skills, like, even the level of, you don't understand what's happening in someone else's head. And by being jerks and being, difficult people to be around, just makes it so much harder for that individual. Like, I remind junior staff all the time in healthcare. I'm like, you've had a bad day. You may think you've got a bad day, but then you're looking at someone in an emergency bed. What do you reckon their day is?
Yeah. What are doctors like? No. And this is one thing that's interesting for me, right? So pilots, you've definitely got a hierarchy chain, right? So, the pilots are effectively at the top. They run the Air Force and they're really good at it. But sometimes they've just got no idea they haven't got the big picture. With doctors, and do you have the same sort of things going on?
Oh, you've got there's lots of unique characters in the doctor world, and there are definitely hierarchies. Like, you have the real clear, I am the consultant.
Yep.
I'm the big dog. I've been here. I've done my time. I got told off as I had to do my internship and I had to do my part, and then that just filters through. And you try to, like, say anything about it and it just gets brushed off. You don't know me, I'm the boss, whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's you. No worries. Like, I remember an old patient who used to be an orthopedic surgeon, and he comes in, do you know who I am? And I'm like, no, I don't know who you are. And he goes, I used to be the head of the unit. And I'm like, you're a guy that's come in with an infection. Like, I'm here to look after you. Like, your orthopedic history's got nothing to do with how I'm going to look after you today.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not going to
that doesn't change.
Yeah.
No. And like, even the wife, he's like, he used to be head of surgeon. I'm like, but he's a guy that's coming with abdo pain and an infection that I'm trying to help look after. I'm like, why do I have to treat him any differently? He's the same as every patient that comes into my emergency department.
It's a flex.
But I've had weird interactions. Like, I've told you this story, but this one is kind of where I'm trying to make change. So I remember a lady came in, she got told to come into hospital because they wanted to talk about some scans. And the nurse came up to me in this shock look. He goes, Dan, you won't believe what just happened. And I'm like, come on, I've been here a long time and nothing shocks me. And he goes, well, patient's crying. The junior doctor went in and his first question was, what's your resus status? I was like, did he even say his name? He's like, nah, just flat out, what's your resus status? So then I had to like diffuse the whole situation, reassure this lady that she wasn't dying today. They wanted to give her some treatment after they found an infection in her lung. But I was just like, my God, like one good thing that I have found with doctors training now is that as an undergraduate, you have to do a level of volunteer work, working with people. Like we have heaps of volunteers that just sit and talk to patients because it just does not happen when they're just, because they have a lot to learn. And I have massive respect for doctors. Like there's so much they have to know.
Yeah.
But like the people skills just, it essentially goes in one ear and out the other because they're trying to remember everything else. And yeah, so having conversations with senior doctors now about what I do, they're like, oh, we knew that with ours, but we got to try and fit it in our curriculum because we have to learn everything else. So that's a challenge that I have moving forward is, trying to, can I get half hour here, half hour there, just to have a chat to your team? But the nursing cohort are great because they're like, oh, hey, Dan, I had this interaction. Can you help me work through? And people are coming up and asking me now, which is great. It's just funny how you hear how people are wired. Like,
so that comes back to that graph we're talking about, right? So this doctor's really good at his job, but has zero trust and zero rapport with patients and his colleagues, right?
Yeah.
So that gap that, moving across to build that trust is really hard to do. You can get better at your job any day of the week, right? But building trust, the performance, psychological safety, the emotional intelligence is a hard thing, which is why I think it's really important for, there's a lot, like, if we can influence the younger generation with this stuff. So, you've got your doctors who are going through uni, right? Let's give them some human skills training because that's when they need it. So they end up, human skills is normalized throughout the whole career. So that when they walk into a room with a patient, they can actually just do basic, g'day, how are you? I'm such and such. Wonderful to see you. Geez, you're looking better than you were yesterday. Is there anything I can do to help you? How's your resus status? Potentially, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's not hard, is it?
No, like I found one big thing that I'm trying to get into at the moment is like the trade industry.
Okay.
Like I've spoken to a lot of people who are tradies themselves, and I'm like, talking about what I do. I was doing a heap of cold calling last year, and I had a few guys who were really genuine, really generous with their time, and talking about like the problem is it's when you're at TAFE, like they just smash all the hard skills that they have to learn. They smash it into them, and they're all 16 to 24-year-old kids essentially, and it's just all that, and then they get chucked on a work site, and they're expected to know everything, and then things like taking feedback, they don't know how to take it. Like a lot of kids you find that are in trades, I'm going to say specifically want to be a builder from young age.
Yeah.
They generally get put into that industry because academically they're not quite there. So it's like, oh, you got to be better at a trade, right? So they're already a little bit rejected to start with in life because it's like, well, you're not sticking to the academic cohort, so now you're going to go into here. So they're already missing a gap when it comes to these sort of things. So like getting feedback, having a challenging conversation with the boss, they don't know how to ask for help because they've been slammed in a TAFE, that they're too scared to ask the dumb question because they're scared their boss will get upset. And then accidents happen, and like it's just, I'm fascinated with like how I could potentially influence that generation of people, your 16 to 24-year-olds who are still trying to get their head around life as it is. But like you said, the hard skills you can learn over time. Like, it actually
Oh,
isn't, it's not hard to do. You just need the right environment. But I think if you've taught how to take feedback first, you're actually going to progress faster because you know how to take a breath and take it in, and, you know, you don't have to take all of it, and that's fine. Like, I've been given feedback plenty of times in my life. Probably 60 to 70% of it is just the other person wanting to give their point of view. It doesn't actually change how I work. So 30 to 40% of what I take is actually of value. But you can also see how someone could take 100% of it personally.
yeah.
And that's a problem. So
Oh,
even teaching that stuff is a significant thing in my skills days. It's like, it's okay. It's not personal. People are trying to help. You're just not approaching it the right way.
yep. Yeah, true. And it works at all levels, doesn't it? Like stress and anxiety in the workplace has less to do with the actual work and more to do with weak leadership and management.
Mm.
So if we can develop these skills in people at an earlier stage as part of their technical training, potentially, and it's just basic stuff. But then a lot of them too, what happens is you come into your job, you work there for a few years to get promoted into a supervisor or management position, and now they've got no management skills. They don't know how to be a leader. They don't know how to talk to. They don't know how to provide the tough feedback. They don't know how to
Mm.
listen to, you know, all of this stuff. So it's just so vitally important to, you can reach them at all levels, but I think starting early is super important.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a day. I do an emerging leaders day. So I have a senior management, well, more
Oh,
management
good.
day. And then I have an emerging leaders day. So these are your nurses who have probably been around for 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
and are wanting to make that progression. And I had
Well,
one girl come in. I had one girl come in one day. I think she was just told to attend the day, wasn't really given any info from her manager, just said attend the day. And I opened up the day about emerging leaders, and she just put her hand up and went, I don't know why I'm here. I'm not a leader. And it caught me off guard. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do here? How do I mention this? There's 60 people looking at me right now. I just slowly walked up to her desk and got to her level and dropped the volume down. And I said, you know, why do you think you're not a leader? And she gave it, you know, I'm a junior nurse. I come in, I do my job, I go home. And as if I'm kind of trying to think of how do I get this to a point. And I said, okay, so when you're looking after your patients, you're doing an amazing job. What happens if one of your patients gets really unwell and you need to escalate? You push, you call a code blue. She goes, okay. I said, so all these doctors and nurses and other people are running into the room. What are you doing? And she goes, oh, I'm giving handover about the patient and the situation. I said, so in your mind, that doesn't make you a leader in that situation. And you can just see her look at me and the cogs going over. And she's like, oh, I have capacity. I said, you absolutely have capacity. You just needed the permission to do it. No one's ever told you that you're a leader, have you? She goes, no. I'm like, you're a leader. And left it at that. And I walked away and I said, are you happy if I continue on? She goes, yeah. And I said, worst case scenario is you got a free feed, you got a couple of your friends here, and you're getting paid. And she goes, yeah, okay, no worries, I'll stay. And then as the day progressed and the activities were coming, she just didn't sit there. She like took charge in some of them and like really thrived. And it was so cool to see. And then at the end of the day, as everyone left, she like stopped and came back and was like, I'm so glad that you like came up and spoke to me. And it was so cool for her to like have this massive paradigm shift within herself to be able to move forward and take on that more leadership role in, you know, what she was doing. Like she's not she's not in a management role, but when she goes to work now, she like sets the expectation with her team of like what's going to happen. And I'm like, how cool.
Mhm.
It was amazing.
That is brilliant, man.
Mm.
I just love hearing stories like that because you've just changed someone's life. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's and that then. So now you've started that person's leadership journey, right, which then you've done that in front of 60 people, which is the most powerful thing, right? So hats off
Yeah.
to you. You had a massive win that day. I hope you put that on your gratitude page because
Yeah.
that has shown that one person can make a difference. And even if you don't think you're in the right position to do that, well, guess what? You absolutely are. And that, yeah,
Mm.
sharing that's a good story, man. I like that.
I use it in all my days going forward now. I use that story. It still gets me a little emotional talking about it, but it gets people in. People gets invested in it then. Um, I like to have my emotions on my sleeve a bit. So I, now and again get a bit teary when I talk about stories, but it just makes it real for people. Um, I've had other leadership days that I've been to, and it just feels so scripted and it's at a tick, 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 tick. And I just think having that actual human side of it
Mhm.
just makes it, and my experience just makes it so much easier for people um to be able to absorb it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stories is where it's at, isn't it?
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
If you hear someone's story or give them the opportunity to put it out there, or you tell them your story, we relate to that. It's what we've been doing for millions of years as humans, is sitting around a campfire telling stories of what's going on. That's what resonates with us.
Yeah.
So if you sharing that story every single time you do that, that's brilliant. I've got a similar one with a couple of guys who come to a training day, and yeah, they didn't want to be there. They were checked out from the second they walked into the classroom, and they see the U shape of the tables, and they're like, oh, we're going to be talking to each other, aren't we? But yep, sure are, boys. But we watched this case study. This is actually it was a safety class. Safety workshop. We watched this case study, and they were talking to each other through the whole thing. And I was like sitting over in the corner, like, oh, these guys, I'm going to have a talk with them because they're being a bit annoying. So afterwards, they're like, hey, oh yeah, sorry, Steve. After we were talking through that, we're really sorry, but we want to talk with you about it because every single bad thing that happened in that safety case study is actually happening in our workplace at the moment. And my eyes were like, whoa, right, now you've got my attention. And where they worked was in the fuel farm. So, the massive storage containers with all the jet fuel for the planes, right? And they were telling me all these issues with it. So I did we did that 2-day workshop, but then I went to their workplace afterwards, a couple of days later, and we did a learning teams. I put everything on the whiteboard that they considered a problem, took photos of it, took that to the boss and went, hey, so this is what's going on at the fuel farm right now. And he goes, geez, I thought it was bad, but I never knew it was this bad. And the process of us listening to their story, those guys told the story within that group. They told us a story. We went over there, got more meat on the bone for that whole situation, took that to the leadership chain. If there was a breakdown if there was a barrier there where, like, if the boss wouldn't let us come through his door because he hasn't got the time, or if those guys were too scared to tell me, because I'm a senior rank, if they were too scared to tell me their story, and that would have failed. So all of these skills really helped us get across the line. In the end, 6 months later, they ended up getting a $20 million cash injection for the fuel farm and fixed every problem that they discussed, which was brilliant, right? So that story created that end result, which was a fantastic result. So yeah, they are really important. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
tell that
It's
story from
amazing.
time to time as well, because that was
Yeah.
a massive win. That was a big organizational win. And I see that guy, one of those guys. I still see him from time to time down at the cafe here, and he's like, yeah, we still talk about that every single day. We see each other. It was good. Yep.
Awesome.
Mm.
Nice.
But you know what I worry about? Here's my biggest concern with all of this sort of stuff. Okay, because we do these workshops, and where I do them, I do coaching workshops as well, and it's generally the junior ranks, right? So in the Air Force, it's LACs, corporals, maybe a sergeant, and a couple of junior officers, right? And unfortunately, they all come in talking about how their bosses are assholes. So yes, while we're catching the emerging leaders, which is super important, I know that these people in the senior management positions have also done this sort of training 10 years ago or so, but they've forgotten it. So you go into your executive team every few years is really important, because I had to get my executive team to come down and do one. I did it execs only one, and they were like, we haven't got the time for this 60. And so I did it I smashed it into half a day. But then in the end, they were like, yeah, we get it. We get why you did this. And that also became really valuable, and then I had people coming to me for many months afterwards going, hey, whatever workshop you did with the seniors, that was really good, because their arsehole level has dropped it, from here down to here, which is good. So it does. It all helps me. So good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming today, man. That was a good chat.
Thank you. Thanks for having the chat. It was great. Great start off, and see what more we can make in the future.
I agree. Yeah. See how many lives we can change, how many stories we can tell, and how many people's
Absolutely.
stories we can change.
Yep. And anyone watching, feel free to write something in the comments.
All right, buddy.
Yeah.